Today we will be doing pallet removal on a Bleichert AL75 conveyor. The tools needed for this job will be a speed clamp, 13mm socket wrench, torque wrench, and red Loctite. After ensuring your conveyor is properly locked out, the first step in the process is to take your speed clamp and clamp it onto the center guide to make sure when your pallets are unbolted, they will not roll out the end of the conveyor. You can do this process from either end of the conveyor, depending on what end is easier to work with. In order to remove the pallets, you will need to remove the 4 bolts holding your clutch plate and your chain claws on both sides of your pallet. With your bolts out of your clutch plates and your chain claws, the next step in the process is to remove the clutch plates free from the pallet and free from your chain. As you will see, the clutch plates slide in and out from underneath the chain. Both the plastic sprockets lock into place and can be removed from both sides once the bolts are removed. Now, with both of your clutch plates removed from both sides of your pallets, you can then go ahead and remove your clamp, enabling your pallet to roll out the end of the conveyor. Now that the old pallet is out of the conveyor and the new one is ready to put back in service, you will see we have 1 new pallet, 2 new friction plates, 4 shoulder bolts. What's very important with the shoulder bolts, each one has a double locking washer to it. You see there's 2 washers to each side of it, which we call unilock washers. It's very important to make sure that every bolt has a double lock washer. With my new pallet back in place, we'll go ahead and line them back up and grab both of my friction plates and insert those back in the conveyor. Start to put them back together. With my friction plates back in place, I will go ahead and slip the sprockets underneath the chain and line up both of the bearing blocks with the bolt holes and begin to reassemble the pallet. Whenever taking apart a pallet, it's very important to remember when you reassemble it to use a dab of red Loctite on each of the shoulder bolts, and once again ensure that each of your double lock washers are in place as well. With my bolts back in place, securely lined up with the bearing block and the chain claws, I can then go ahead and securely fasten all the bolts to the bearing blocks and the clutch plates. After making sure my bolts are securely fastened on both sides, the next step in the process is to get a torque wrench and torque all your bolts to 39 Newton meters. Now that my bolts have been properly torqued to 39 Newton meters, I will do a final check to make sure that my chain claws and spacers are all on correctly. Your chain claw and your spacer should both have the flat side up, with both of the nipples facing down towards the chain. Now that both sides are in place and everything is tightened down, you can then go ahead and remove your C-clamp from the bottom of your conveyor, and your pallet removal process is finished.